This presentation is about playtesting and how we as a casual game studio use it to get insights and how we are sort of surprised by it. And we have forced ourselves to get results on a playtest in a weekend. So to give you some background, my name is Bart van Berg. I founded Blue Giraffe Games and have 10 plus years experience in developing games and apps. We're based in Eindhoven, which is roughly 120 kilometers from here. It has the best soccer team of the country. And my background is on UX and human and computer interaction. So I have a degree in software development, but also skilled in user interaction. And we run a fairly small casual game studio in Eindhoven with a team of 15. We develop story-driven casual games, focuses on young women aging 18 to 65. We have close partnerships with publishers to publish our own IP, but also develop in co-production. To give you a bit of a background on what type of casual game studio we are not very big, so there's some flavors of indie. And one of the things that somehow get us all the time is, I'm going to teach you a Dutch word here. It's steggelen. And it's the art of discussing non-relevant topics around a game in this case. So we are a small team, all passionate developers, passionate game designers and artists, and we always tend to drop our opinion about what needs to be in a game. And in most cases, they conflict very big. So, for example, we're working on a pretty big title right now, and we were wondering if certain features of that game would actually fit the audience. And the game designer, as passionate as he is, he figured, well, it needs to be more gameplay, more meta gameplay, and the players will love this. And on the other hand, you had the developers that were basically trying to nail it down to its core fundamentals and trying to figure out how to build it solid. And nearly all of our discussions always end in a weekend WhatsApp discussion, which starts on Friday afternoon, goes all the way over the weekend, and on Monday we still haven't decided what to do with certain features or how to move forward. So one of the things that we were working on was that we were introducing a certain feature that would allow players to walk across the entire realm of the game without actually having to play the core gameplay, but use mini games to engage those customers. And we couldn't agree on it. And we had that discussion a couple of times, and it just kept popping back over the course of a couple of weeks. And on one Friday, we were sort of fed up of our own discussion and non-results, that we plead to let's do it differently. And instead of relying on our own opinion on what the game should be, which I think is what passionate people tend to do, is get other people involved. And we figured the best way to do so was to actually get players involved. Now, we're a studio with quite some experience in developing games, but we're all pretty much always scared to shits to share something which isn't finished, and especially on a mobile device. So we agreed on to send out a version of a game to roughly 70 people, which needed to be the core audience. We need those players to play the game on the actual end target device, which was going to be an iPhone and an iPad. We want to send a build on a Friday, analyze the results on Monday, so we could decide on whether or not we're going to incorporate some features in that specific week. Also, while we were looking at playtesting, we noticed that the developers were like, no, we don't want to add all kind of features or somehow wrap it so that players won't see other parts of the game. So we agreed on we're just going to present the game as is and try to see if we can instruct the players that this is an unfinished game and things will change. Also, our marketing got really anxious because it's like, okay, if we're going to send out a build to 70 people, which are going to be your fans, they might be blowing screenshots and videos across the web, which will disturb your marketing campaign. So this is what we did. On December 2nd, 2015, we posted it's a small post on Facebook on our channel, asking our players to test a game. We didn't know what we could expect. We had no idea which of those players would result in an engagement, and we had no idea of the volume of interest. Within an hour, we got 1,200 people to sign up for a game. And we only wanted the 70 people to play with, so that was a bit too much. And to bring it down, we asked those players to actually sign up with a motivation of at least 8 lines. So those 1,200 people took the time to actually write a motivation and figure out if this game met their criteria. We handpicked 70 out of those, and we sent them a private invite to a playtest website, where we would just show them a screenshot and allow them to sign up to get the game. Then we asked them to install a companion app, which was available in iOS, where we would onboard those players before we would actually distribute a build. And one of the features in that product is that you could actually start chatting with those players like you would on Slack, for example, and get a feeling of how they would perceive what to expect. And a couple of hours afterwards, we sent out a build through iOS, which was an ad hoc build to those 70 players. We also implemented a small SDK to gather in-app feedback, because we noticed that most of the previous feedback we got was about art, about experience, and in some cases our players actually took the time to create a screenshot using the home and the power button, sent it over email. Some of them even opened Photoshop and drew something on top of that. So we figured we need to add something that would allow our players to actually provide in-game feedback. And that was quite kind of odd, because we would get feedback from players that would actually tell us, okay, I'm actually seeing this magazine stand, can you change this to a character of another game you've developed? And one player actually noticed that in a level which wasn't finished, which wasn't accessible to the player, that in the toilets, next to the fountain, in the mirror, there was a reflection of a soap bottle, but the actual soap bottle wasn't presented on the stand. So she pointed out, guys, there's a reflection of something that isn't in the game. So holy shit, those people are actually looking at details that even our own artists aren't looking at. And over the course of the weekend, we started to analyze the player data. So we looked at how they perceived the game, how long they played, but also how they reacted and responded to mini games, achievements, and scores. And also asked them and kept re-engaging to send feedback with screenshots, which really surprised us, because by the end of the weekend, we figured, well, if we ask them to give us feedbacks with screenshots, what the hell, we'll just ask them 30 questions survey, which will take 15 minutes, of which 50% will consist of required open answers. No one's going to answer that. And we were surprised that the majority of the players actually took the time to respond to those survey and give us proper answers. So they weren't just skipping through the survey, but really helping us out, making sure that we understood their motivation. So on Monday morning, we had 65 people that we handpicked on Friday that played over 50 hours of a vertical of the game, which only consists of 30 minutes of gameplay. We had 199 comments with screenshots and really well annotated screenshots with how to also update it. And we got 45 people responding on a survey. And the cool thing about it was, when we onboarded those 70 players, we asked, sort of pinky swear, you're going to get a SKU which isn't available, the game isn't finished, and we would really appreciate you not telling the other players that you've basically played a pre-launch version of a game. And nothing was shared on Facebook. So we didn't have to sign any NDAs or follow up with contacts. The only thing we got was honest price that we were involving those players. there was people actually thanking us that they were selected to play a game, which really humbled us because we were just building a cool game, but we didn't know that it was really that impactful to our audience. And by the time on Monday morning, we wanted to take the game offline because we figured we've got all the data, so we were scared that those players would actually backfire and say, hey, why are you taking us out of the playtest? Again, those players were just very humble and said, oh, thanks again for letting us play. If you ever want to do another test, please let me know. And this was done on December the 2nd. Up until today, we get daily emails from players asking if we have an update that they can play with. And we'll try to explain them that even though they play 50 hours in a weekend, we code fast, but we're not able to get a new build out that fast. But that really surprised us. So one of the things that struck us was that beforehand we did do some professional playtesting. We asked an on-site consultant to take focus tests. We asked online services to do video recordings. But in the end we figured we could do it ourselves, and this actually didn't cost us anything apart from 1 or 2 guys being standby in a weekend to respond through chat. We had our answers in a weekend, and we even noticed that the players were rooting for the release of a new game. So we actually activated some ambassador or super players that were just basically making noise for a game to be launched in the first quarter of 2016. That's basically what I like to tell you guys. We've used a playtest to see how to get feedback. And I'm curious to hear how you guys use playtesting to get insights and if you've found similar results as well. So that wraps up my presentation. Thanks.
I'm curious what the criteria were that you used to whittle the 1,200 down to the 70?
Yeah. So we had the game designer, which was the most passionate guy, actually select the motivations that sort of struck them the most. But we also looked at whether it would be a cross-section of demograph, languages, if we've actually seen those players on forums before. So we don't want to actually have the hardcore players, but also find new players as well. So we tried to get as best across selection as possible. Yeah.
Why did you not want the hardcore players?
Because we wanted to have a good balance between. Maybe I should tell you something more about this game. This is actually a relaunch of an older IP. So we wanted to see if new audience would respond to it in a similar fashion as the fans that we used to have, to see if we could get other insights. And it was basically also due to the fact that our developer was rooting for the hardcore fans. He said, this feature needs to be in there. And we were figuring out if you want to have an honest opinion, you need to get to find new players as well. And if they're sensible and have the same feeling about the new feature, then at least you have a much better understanding if that's the case. Yeah, thanks.
Of the 30 questions you ask your players, do you remember those that gave you any real key information about your game, the best questions you asked?
Yeah, I think the question that got in there, but our designer didn't like, was basically asking the players, what don't you like about this game? What's absolutely shitty about it? And initially we thought they wouldn't bother putting some time in responding, but they did. Quite explicit, so they would express that certain parts of the story didn't map well, or that some part of the gameplay was too easy or too hard. And it balanced out quite well. We saw a pattern, and that helped us out in specifically the balance component, because some of the games had a very were hand balanced due to the nature of the gameplay. Were very hard to fit in a system. But we couldn't sort of fiddle what was the main reason why people thought it was difficult, and they were able to express that in the comments why they didn't like it. Yeah, that was very helpful.
Why were you afraid of shares? What would be the problem if someone shares a screen of this game? Would it not be an ad, actually?
Yeah. Well, I think the majority of the team didn't mind, but marketing figured every portion of content which I can't control is something I can't use at launch. So they were feared that they would burn through all the content, so they wouldn't be able to get sensible marketing material for launch. On the other hand, we knew that if they would share, at least they would share out of passion, right? And if not, then at least we've hit a certain spot. So I think it was mostly out of the fear of the total content set that was available. Yeah.
All right, then. Thank you very much.
Cool. Thanks.